everybody in the Social Responsibility and Computing course. Today's lecture is focused on your research paper. Your research paper is going to be due in about 5 weeks from now. And I've got 3 examples to show you. I'm not going to post these examples up on the website. Instead, I'm going to show you in the video because I don't want people to copy them and it leads to plagiarism and stuff like that. So instead, I'd rather just show it to you. So the first example that I'm going to show you, and these are examples of things that you might want to do for your research paper. If you have not gotten to this point yet, now is the time to get to this point. So you've picked out a topic, you've done a little research, and now you have to figure out how to write it up. Well, you've got 3 choices. First choice, well, what are the 3 choices? One is the book report. The other one is the ethical scenario. The third choice that you have that a lot of students opt to do when they can't figure out how to do anything else is just the traditional research paper. So let me tell you the differences between the 3 choices, and let me demonstrate to you with a sample paper. So this one here is the book report. So if you're going to do the book report option, you're going to base your research and your reports and what you're going to write up. You're going to write it up on one particular source, and it's going to be a book that you select. And so if we look at this example, and we go to the end under the Works Cited section, Works Cited on page 9, and the paper's supposed to be about 10 pages, 9 to 10 pages double spaced is what you're shooting for here. The book that this particular paper is written on is called Access Denied, the Practice and Policy of Global Internet Filtering, and it's by MIT Press from 2008. And so there's only one book in here because the entire report is made off of this one single book. And so if we go through, we see that the Works Cited only has the one book, and you might notice a few things about this particular paper. There's no cover sheet on it, but the next one I'm going to show you does have a title page. It's your choice whether or not you want to put a title page on. There are page numbers on the particular paper. And usually you want to put the class name in there, maybe the date. This has got kind of a limited kind of title page, but the title here is Analysis of Access Denied, which is the practice and policy of global internet filtering. This is an analysis of the particular book. This is why I call it a book report. So the student picked this book out and is writing a report on the book. Okay, so the book itself is talked about. You're not copying from the book, you're not paraphrasing from the book, and you're not rewriting the book. Instead, you're going to provide your analysis of the book. So this is the analysis of this particular book. So motivations for censorship. I'm not going to read the whole paper to you. I'm just going to read a couple lines to you to kind of give you the flavor for how this goes. So in this particular book, the authors discuss the research findings about internet filtering on the global level. And they dive into the implications of the government censorship and setting the precedents for control over cyberspace. The author of this particular paper is talking about their findings. You know, their studies are found. There are 4 basic motivations. There's 4 motives for internet filtering. We have politics and power, social norms and morals, security concerns and internet tools, and applications that are essentially 3 motives or rationales for the filtering. Talks about, in the book there were these motives. There's three motives, and this is kind of the introduction where the student is talking about the 3 motives that are coming out, and the student takes and creates, and the author summarizes the different degrees of censorship. And pulled this little chart out of the book and gave reference to it, that it was on page 19 of the book. Yeah. And this infographic, talked about the infographic. What did the infographic say? And quoted the book, quoted the book properly. How is filtering implemented? Talked about how the filtering is implemented. And there's different sections. Here's the ethical dilemmas that are associated. And you want to focus on the ethical dilemmas. And the author did bring in Wikipedia, so in terms of an example, it's generally not known as being a credible source. Talked about, other examples that were presented in the book. And you see another one here, corporate ethics. You see that these headers are headers that are just created to separate out the topics. It's a good idea to create headers for each one of the sections where you're going to introduce a new topic. Noticing also that the paper is double spaced, which is a good thing to do. And it's done in a word processor, of course, like Microsoft Word. This is actually a PDF. You can do it in Microsoft Word if you'd like. Now, I probably would have put a conclusion section in this paper. It's missing a conclusion. It's also missing a lot of referencing. Not too much referencing going on with this paper. I'd say that this paper is more of a B+ or an A- kind of paper. If the author had put maybe an intro at the top here and maybe a conclusion at the end, and maybe provided a few more reference citations, it would be a stronger A paper. But notice, and the page length is slightly, it should be about 10 pages. So it is slightly low, because the last page is just the 9th page, which doesn't really technically count, nor does the title page. The 9th page, which is really only an 8-page paper, so it is kind of short, which is why I put it in the B+, A- category, because it's slightly short on the page length. It needs to be 10 pages. It is double spaced, and the format does look good, and the author did use headings. But I would say that the organization of the paper probably could have included an intro and a conclusion as well. But overall, the paper's not bad. A few more reference citations would have been good as well. So the idea is that you are talking about what the author of the book has said, what points they brought up, what was in the book. This is basically an example of the book report, following only the content that is in this one particular work cited, this one particular book. And in its analysis of the book, you can also provide, and the other thing I don't really see here is in the conclusion, you could also provide some information about how you feel. Did you agree? Did you disagree with what the authors wrote? Did you have anything personally to add to it that the authors didn't introduce? Some of that stuff could have gone into a conclusion section. But this is the example of the book reports. So if you don't want to do a book report and you want to do the ethical scenario, here's the ethical scenario example. Now this one happens to be 11 pages long, which is great because, and again, there's no title page, but I want to say that the 11th page is probably, and it is, the works cited page. Both of these two papers, and actually all of the examples that I'm going to show you, are following the APA writing style. So if you're confused about how you should write this up, you can use these papers as an example. Or look up apa.org, apa.org. APA stands for American Psychological Association. It is the writing style guide. It's the APA style. It is commonly used in a lot of computer science, software engineering stuff. So here we have our textbook that was referenced, A Gift of Fire. We have a Facebook, looks like a retrieved from, and the website. These are how you actually, if you take information off of the internet, this is how you would document it in the works cited. So this particular paper provides you with a good example of how to do internet resources. This one was taken, and this is the retrieve date. So it was taken on, retrieved on December 2nd, 2019. This was last semester. This is the Code of Ethics. So the author of this particular paper, which I'm leaving confidential on both of them, by the way, looks like did most of their research from the internet except for the class textbook. And on the internet sources, they gave you... this one didn't have the dates. This one probably could have used the date as well. The date's recommended, actually. but looks like they put the date in here. So this one came from, it looks like an article in Data Breaches. This one came on Data Privacy, Definition, Explanation, and Guide. Okay, so they're pretty good sources. You don't have to use library sources. You can use sources of information that come from the internet or from any particular source that you want. Okay, this particular paper is more of the page length I was looking for. Again, it's missing a title page, but that's not really a problem. We have this kind of makeshift title page that happens right here in the beginning. And then we have this little, and you could have, maybe the author could have put an introduction here, because I noticed that there was a conclusion at the end. The last section is a summary. But you might notice that it goes through all of the, there's a conclusion in there too. All of the steps of the ethical scenario. So we have a little introduction, introduce the topic, and then we have, we're going to come down here, so sensitive information, yada, yada. And then really this last bit of the paragraph, to analyze this hypothetical scenario for the company regarding the ethical and social aspects, I am using the ethical analysis framework that is provided in the book, The Gift of Fire, Chapter 9 of the ethical framework, that contains the steps that are helpful to create an ethical workplace and ethical practices for the stakeholders. So this is what I mean by the analysis of the ethical scenario. What is this ethical scenario? It looks like privacy of data. Let's see, to understand. One of the companies is providing a voice command device to people to make their everyday life easier. And the company states that a company can record the voices of the users to make the product better for the future. This may contain sensitive information of the users in the form of the voice. But in the policy, the company did not mention that the company will not misuse the user's data under the circumstances. So it looks like they're recording voice information, and that if you read through the scenario, which I'm not going to upload this paper, so you can make up any scenario that you want really for this, but it looks like an Alexa app, like something similar to Alexa, where the company is recording voice information, and there's some privacy concerns, looks like, over whether or not they should tell the customers that they are using this information. So step number 1 is identify the relevant facts. So if you begin to analyze the scenario, the consideration, talks about the facts. So in this particular section, and you notice that the sections now are labeled 1 for identify the relevant facts. There's only 9 sections, by the way, and you can take them from the syllabus. So what are the facts of the case? Number 2 is identify the possible policies that are in place. Number 3, after you've done the facts and the policy, analyze each one of the policies. Are there policies in place? And this particular writer took it from the ACM Code of Ethics, it looks like. Number 4, identify the principles and the values associated with it. Identify the consequences, number 5. You can have all the subcategories if you want, or the main categories. It doesn't really matter. You just want to go through the scenario, the steps. Number 6, identify the applicable laws. You might not know them. You might not catch them all, which is okay. Identify and analyze the trade-offs. What I'm trying to do is show you the format. Number 8, analyze the ethical issues with respect to the law and the respect to relevant facts in the code. Number 9, the conclusions. So, in conclusion, if I take in consideration all of the analysis steps with respect to each policy, then the most ethical, fair, and justified policy is the second policy. Apparently they came up with a couple of them, in which the company is not required to record the user data at all, and the company should decide that this policy is to be implemented. The main reason why I suggest this policy is because it presents, and there are more benefits of using online services and devices to make everyday life easier. And the services are increasing and more privacy issues people are facing. So they provide some pretty good justification. So you should select, at least in your conclusion, decide what you would do if you were making the decision on this policy. And then this particular paper has a summary at the end. By experimenting with the analysis framework and the hypothetical, I got familiar with every aspect of the ethical point of view, the fair use and the justice. Yeah, okay. It's optional in this particular case. I would have just stopped with the conclusion. But maybe the student wanted to get, and this is actual student paper, maybe the student actually wanted to get more page length on there, because I see that goes into the 10th page. But this is the appropriate page length you want to be looking for. And this is an example of the ethical scenario where you're going to go through the syllabus and you're going to go through those 9 steps. And you could just go like this with headers. This is number 1. And then this is number 2. And go through. Or you can, do 2A, 2B, 2C if you want. The format is completely up to you. And yeah, they are using the ACM Code of Ethics, it looks like. But this is an example of the ethical scenario. So let's see. The last one, now this one actually has a title page. This one's called the research paper. And if you can't figure out how to do the ethical scenario and you don't want to do it, or you can't figure out how to do the book report, you just want to do a research paper. How does this differ? Well, the research paper does not go through the ethical scenario. Instead, you actually perform some research. And I'm going down to the end to the works cited. Noticing that all of these examples have a works cited or a references page at the end of the paper. I do want to see your references, and I do want to see the references incorporated into your writing. So here we have an open ethical issue in the digital forensic system. Well, this one looks like it's on digital forensics. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 sources here, which is pretty good. Again, if you're writing a book report, you only have 1 source. If you're writing an ethical scenario, you might not have more than 1 or 2 sources. Of course, the book is going to be one of your sources. And if you're writing a research paper, you're going to have different sources, not all the same, and they're going to come from different research that you're performing. Okay, so what's the difference? This one here, you put your name on the research paper. I took the name off of the research paper. So this one is digital forensic, the unethical use of techniques. So this particular student decided to focus on digital forensics and what are the unethical uses of the techniques. All right, and so the digital forensics goes through is a branch of forensic science that goes through and yada, yada, yada. So it talks about, this would be the introduction. Talks about the concept of digital forensics. Digital forensic framework talks about the framework associated with it. I'm going to have a lecture on digital forensics as well in this course before it ends. Brings up some case studies. Again, these topics are completely up to you. The headings are completely up to you. It depends on the format of the paper and what it is you're creating. The murder trial of Casey Anthony. Apparently they use some digital forensics with that. Talks about his case and how that was handled. Here's a case of the presumed unauthorized use of intellectual property. So he's got a couple of case studies in here he's going to talk about, that he talks about in regards to the digital forensics. And then he got a conclusion section. And it says, in these 2 cases, we find the main stakeholders this digital forensics are the people who are conducting the digital forensics investigation, the investigator and the practitioner. So he's kind of bringing in the ethical scenario at the same time here. Kind of a hybrid here. Talks about who the stakeholders are, talks about who the issues are, and how some of the issues can be resolved, and how should they be resolved. And the growing trend, as the technology is growing faster, so is the field of digital forensics and what we're capable of doing. And just because we're capable of doing something, is it legal? Is it in the best interest of the court? And how should the data actually be handled? So solving the ethical issues of data handling and digital forensics is dependent on the integrity of the practitioner. Well, that's a pretty good closing sentence there. But you see, it's this is an A paper. It is of the appropriate, it's a 1-page short. And it depends on if they counted the title page. No, they didn't count the title page, so it's close. 9 to 10 pages is fine. Nine is the threshold. It looks to be double spaced. It looks like we've got some headings in here. Those are I'm talking about a header. That's a heading. Looks. I would say that some more referencing is needed in here. I don't see too many reference citations within the text, which means if you're gonna write something that you got from another book, in fact, I would hope to have seen that here, and I did. Some quotation marks, but I don't see a reference to tell me where that actually came from. Here's what I'm talking about. That's a reference citation. This particular Anthony on charges of child neglect, false statements, and obstruction with some quotation marks here. That came from this particular source. I was hoping to see a few more reference citations. I'm not seeing as many as I would expect to see out of this. So one takeaway from my observations is you might want to add a few more reference citations. Make sure you're giving proper credit where credit is due. If you are taking words or information from one of your sources, make sure that you provide a reference for it. This paper lacks a lot of references, but you might not be fond of creating references, so keep that in mind. You probably do want to create some. Whether or not you have a formal title page or not is completely up to you. I sort of think the title page looks good. You definitely do, and you need to have as an absolute requirement either a references or works cited page. That's just the title of the page that shows your references. Put your references in any citation format that you want. If you're looking for one, the APA reference citation is more appropriate. This one looks like the IEEE, but that's fine as well. So if you have questions about the format, you don't have to tell me which one you're doing. I'm going to figure it out when you give it to me. You got 3 choices. You can do the traditional research paper. If you'd like, you can do the ethical scenario where you run through each one of the 9 stages of the analysis, or you can do the book report. The book report is on a single source. The single source is a book, and you're going to write about the scenarios and the ethical situations that were read in the book. So I hope this helped to clarify some of the questions you might have about the research paper. It is due on the very last day of class, which is coming up in approximately 5 weeks. So you do want to start writing it. It needs to be 9 to 10 pages in length. You can check out the syllabus for further details on the word count. And I would say that focus on giving me something that looks professional, that's double spaced, that represents your honest hard work. Consider it a major term project because it is. Use whatever format you want. If you don't want to use a title page, don't use a title page. I am looking for a reference list at the end or works cited. I want to see which sources you used, and I want to see that you've actually incorporated the research into the paper. So I hope this is helpful. Get going, start working on that term paper. It's going to be due in about 5 weeks, and I will see you soon for another video. So take care, be healthy, and stay safe. And I'll talk to you later.